Game art students who want to be material artists always try to make tile materials in Substance Designer, but how many times have you made them so simple that they're just boring and they don't call the attention of any studio you want to work on? Let me show you 4 ways you can enhance your materials to be more eye-catching in your portfolio. And I know this works because one of my students applied it in their work and they went from this to this in just 1 month. So let's get started. Tip number 1 is break the pattern. The most simple part of a material is always the hardest part of the material because we really don't take a look into it. And that's one of the biggest mistakes that most game art students do when creating textures in Substance Designer. Now, when it comes to tile materials, the pattern is something quite simple. It's just squares aligned, maybe disaligned a little bit, and that is the end. And yes, it's actually quite simple to do, but that's also why it's so boring. So you have to find a way to break the pattern to make it more unique or more interesting to the eye where the information doesn't repeat. So why do I say that the information shouldn't repeat? Because your brain blocks that information. Whenever your brain captures information that is repeated, it just turns it off so it doesn't overload your brain memory. So in order to break that defense mechanism we have, we need to break the pattern. And here are 3 ways you can do it. Remove tiles from your material. This breaks with the pattern repetition quite a lot, and it's actually quite obvious why. We're just removing 1 tile from the material. Well, not 1 tile, several times. And the best part is that it will also open up the door for you to add a secondary material that will complement your project. And in this case, it will be the mortar that is behind the tiles, depending on what kind of tiles you are making. Now, if this doesn't feel enough, you can also do our second step, that is adding visual color changes. Elements like leaks, painted tiles or so will help you break the pattern, but only if they are strong enough to make a difference. If not, they're not gonna really help you out. Now, the third thing you can do is breaking the tiles more or adding some cracks. And yes, it might sound simple and repetitive, but it actually works. It just breaks the visual of what you're looking and calls for attention when you see it. And the hard part of this is that it needs to be done right. So make sure that if you are going to add any of these 3 things, you need to do it in a way that it feels organic, natural, and responsible to the world that you are building. Now, these 3 things will work only if you follow the main rule I said at the beginning. You need to break the information. This means this doesn't have to be everywhere. It needs to be individual aspects of your material that are breaking the repetition, so it can't be everywhere. It has to be specific. This way, your brain will break their defenses and start noticing this pattern and break with the repetition of the pattern. Now, the second thing you can do to make your material more interesting is creating specific shapes for your material. When you create a new tile material, what kind of shape do you use? I'm really sure that what you use is a square, and let's not lie to each other, that's a pretty boring shape. But you can use even that shape and make something really interesting with some small changes. And no, I'm not talking about rotating your squares to make them look like this, render here from one of my students, but also about creating new patterns with the same shape in different ways. So, what can we do about it? My answer is be specific with the shape and surface details of these tiles, because not all tiles have the same surface detail. In this case, from one of my students' work, you can see how she played with the surface of them to give them some warping and surface deformation. This is super important because it talks about the kind of tile that we are using and where it's layered. If we were creating another kind of tile, like for example one from a subway floor, the streets, anything like that, the details on it and the formation will be different because the environment helps us tell a story, and as an artist we need to translate that story to our creation. Now, this is one of the things you can do, and I know it's quite specific, but let me show you one even better. And this you can do with all kind of patterns, and it involves adding some extra shapes or changes in the size. Now, you can change the tiling in the specific areas to create these visual lines. This breaks not only with the pattern but with the shapes, making a jump in scale that is really visible. And believe me, if you were to finish this, it will look amazing. Now, the third way of making a tile material more interesting is breaking up the color and getting rid of uniform colors. And yes, this is quite similar to breaking the pattern, but we are doing it with color. And I mention this because many game art students have a lot of struggle with base color creation, especially with tiles. Why? Because usually tiles have really simple colors, and because of that they try adding things that they're really not a match for what you're doing and end up or ruining the material or getting something too simple. So let's take a look at how we can approach this. Now, the first tip inside this huge problem we have is actually something you need to stop doing, and you need to stop following your reference as it was the word of God. You need to remember something. You are an artist and you're expected to be creative. Being creative means you need to create new things, new experience for the players that are going to be playing our games. And most of the times, what you're going to be looking for is tell a story. When it's portfolio work, it's a little hard to do it, I know. But when you're working, you're going to need to tell that story. So it's better to start practicing before than after. So why do I say that you shouldn't follow that much the reference images? I know it sounds a little weird, but hear me out. It's not that you shouldn't follow it, you just don't need to copy it. You need to use it as inspiration for what you want to build. And many times what happens is that, and lately it happens a lot with my students, is that they try not to follow the reference as a guideline of how to make things or how things work, but as literally a copy paste of what they have to do. So let me show you some examples. This is one of the materials for my students, and as you can see, she added some small graffitis, but she also adds leaks and many other stuff in it. All of these just add a little bit of story of where this material was from, but I felt it was lacking a little bit more. This is just simple way of doing it. This is not very complex, it's just a small detail that you can add, but if you add it with the next two, it's going to look even better. So the second tip I have for you to breaking down color is using environmental damages. Yeah, and the best example I have is about this material recently finished, where you can see a lot of the environment damage. Now, where do you see it specifically? Well, in the color. If you can see here in this image, you are going to notice that there's a lot of stains going around. Some of them are moss, some of them are rain, some of them are caused by the sun burning the actual tile because it was too hot. Environments affect our material in different ways, and those are the things as a material artist that you need to look for. You need to look for those details, you need to look for that story that tells us where has this material been and what's the environment we are building. Now, if you were curious about that material I just showed you, you will have to wait till the end of the video where I'm going to showcase where you can find the full video and tutorial to make it from zero. And spoiler alert, it's not going to cost 25 or 50 bucks, it's just going to cost you $8 to get it. Now, the first thing you can do to break the color in your material is use color as a visual guide. In this example, we have another reference of the actual subway wall that we wanted to build. Now, the renders I show you, they don't have this because we didn't need it for the environment my student was building, but if I were to do this for portfolio, I would add these kind of blue stripes in the material. And the main reason for that is because it helps a lot to visually break the image. Despite it might not look like much, if you look into shapes, color is one of the first things you notice when there's a high contrast. If you have a white background with two blue lines like these ones, then it's really going to notice, and the more information it has, the more your brain is going to look at it. Now, the final thing you're missing to creating really interesting styles is actually set in the roughness and the render. And the secret is having strong roughness contrast. And yes, it sounds simple, but believe me, it does make a difference. Most of tiles are great for reflections, mostly because they don't have much surface deformation and they cut light quite straight. They're just a plane, light hits them and bounce. So what you can do there is take advantage of that to create really nice contrast between what was the material when it was built and what is now after it has been used. For example, when these tiles were made, they have really shiny elements, but as people went on and used them, and humidity and water, maybe some pipe broke, it started to stain, to lose that really nice roughness it has at the beginning. Now you can create a contrast, and if you do this right in your presentation, what you can do is highlight this a lot. Why are we doing this? Well, believe it or not, as human beings, we love a lot of shiny things, and when something shines that much, your eye is going to follow it. So it's not that you are trying to play with it, but you're trying to use it as a weapon, where you see the before and after of your material and how time and use has been damaging in a way. Now, you don't have to do this with every single material, but from my perspective, I feel that having really nice roughness contrast with specific details and information can be super useful. Now, a really quick tip that you can do is the following. You can go to Substance Painter and look for grunges in there. There's a lot of them. Yes, you can look for dirt grunges and they're really good. Now, you can right click on them, show in Explorer. It will show you an SBAR file that you can grab and drop it inside Substance Designer, and now you can use that as a dirt map for your roughness. Of course, this is not gonna be enough and you might have to play around with it to make it more specific and fit your material, but it's gonna be great addition to your skills or to your process if you're trying to find something new. However, all of this is only going to work if your presentation is right, so I do suggest that you go over my last 3 YouTube tutorial on how to create renders in Marmoset Toolbag 4, because it's actually quite useful. Now, if all of this was really helpful for you and you want to keep learning how to make materials from the hands of professionals, I have a great surprise for you that I have been working on for the last 1.5 years, and I haven't told anyone about it except for my Discord community. This is a full gallery of tutorials that are made by me and other professionals of the industry, and every month it gets updated with new content like classes and even free events. And the best part is that we just launched our latest promotion where you can get access to all of these tutorials tutorials for only $8. Ask You, which is between $25 to $50. This will give you access to all recordings I have, not only mine tutorials, but workshops from Nikki Marinov, Stefan, and many other artists that can kindly help us in the community, bringing new events to our server. So if you want to join us and learn from professionals, just go to our website and subscribe to the studio archive and start learning now. And you might want to have Discord connected to your Patreon account, because there's going to be a small surprise in our Discord server once you have subscribing. I'll be waiting for you there, guys.